When my dad died, I thought the worst was over, until I found the second phone hidden in his closet. When my dad died, I thought grief would be the hardest thing I'd ever face. Turns out, grief was the easy part. The hard part was realizing that the man I spent my whole life admiring, the man I thought I knew better than anyone, was a stranger all along. Dad died suddenly. Heart attack. He was only 62. One minute he was mowing the lawn, whistling that same off-key tune he always did when the weather was nice. And the next, he was gone. It didn't seem real. The ambulance came. The neighbors stood in their driveways pretending not to watch. And I just stood there holding his phone, trying to call Mom, who was in Arizona visiting my aunt. It was a blur. The funeral, the casseroles, the cards that all said the same thing. He was a good man. He loved his family. He will be missed. And yeah, all of that was true. He was a good man, at least. I thought he was. Dad wasn't the kind of guy you could stay mad at for long. He was quiet, patient, always fixing things. If you broke something, he'd shrug and say, "That's what glue's for." If you were upset, he'd offer to take you for a drive because he said, "The world looks smaller when you're moving." When I was a kid, we'd drive out to the edge of town to this little lake surrounded by pine trees. He'd park, open the trunk, pull out 2 sodas, and we'd just sit on the hood of the car, watching the water. He didn't talk much, but when he did, it mattered. "People tell you who they are, Lily," he once told me when I was 13. "You just have to listen between the words." I remembered that for years after he was gone. It became almost like a mantra, which made what I found later even harder to accept. After the funeral, Mom stayed with me for a few weeks. She didn't want to go back to the house alone. Neither did I, but someone had to. So one Saturday morning, I drove out there by myself. The house was exactly how he left it. Coffee mug in the sink, newspaper folded neatly on the counter, shoes by the back door. It smelled like him, that mix of cedar aftershave and motor oil that clung to everything he owned. For a long time, I just stood in the living room, touching things like they were sacred. The dent in the couch cushion where he always sat. The stack of books on the end table. His reading glasses resting on top. I thought I'd feel closer to him being there, but the silence was too loud. I started organizing, because that's what grief does. It makes you want to control something. Anything. I boxed up clothes, sorted tools in the garage, even cleaned out the junk drawer he always said was off limits. Then I went to his office. That was the one room in the house that had always been off limits for real. Growing up, if I even leaned on the doorknob, he'd appear out of nowhere, calm but firm. Not now. "Lily, Dad's working." I never questioned it. He was an engineer, always working on some new design project. He had clients who trusted him. It made sense. But standing there now, surrounded by the hum of the old air conditioner and the dust catching in the sunlight, I realized I didn't actually know what he did for work. Not really. There were blueprints rolled up in the corner, boxes of files, notebooks filled with measurements and sketches, and one locked drawer in his desk. I searched the office for a key but couldn't find one, so I used a screwdriver. The drawer popped open. With a sharp click, inside was a small black flip phone, the kind no one used anymore. It was still plugged into a charger. At first, I thought it was just an old backup, until I pressed the power button. The screen lit up, the battery icon was full, and there were messages, dozens of them, from one number, no name. The most recent was from 2 weeks before he died. Unknown. Same place tonight? Dad. Can't, Elle's visiting. Unknown. Next week then. Same time. Dad. Always. My hands went cold. Elle. That was me. I scrolled further back. Unknown. Missed you yesterday. Rain check? Dad. Wouldn't miss it twice. Unknown. Bring the usual? Dad. Of course. You know me. There were hundreds of messages like that. Casual, intimate, familiar. Never names, never details. But the tone, it wasn't business, it wasn't friendship, it was personal. I clicked on the photos folder next. There weren't many, just 5. The first was a blurry shot of a dock at night, lights reflecting on the water. The second, a woman's hand holding a paper cup of coffee, a small gold bracelet around her wrist, and the third, my dad, smiling, standing, beside that same lake he used to take me to. But he wasn't alone. The woman from the photo stood next to him, her hand on his chest, her face half hidden in his shoulder. They looked happy, too happy. I dropped the phone like it had burned me. It clattered onto the floor, the screen still glowing faintly. I wanted to believe it wasn't what it looked like, that maybe it was just an old client, a friend, a misunderstanding. But the truth was right there, glowing in my palm, undeniable. He'd been meeting someone for years. Maybe. The timestamps on those messages went back at least 5 years. The last photo was dated 6 months ago, the day after my parents' wedding anniversary. I sank to the floor, the phone buzzing faintly in my hand as if mocking me. because even in death, he still had secrets. I stayed in that office for hours. By the time I looked up, the light outside had faded to gray. I should have gone home, but instead I scrolled through every message again, searching for something, anything that explained it. At the very bottom of the inbox, there was one unread message, dated the morning he died. Unknown. Can we talk tonight? It's important. No reply. I clicked on details. The number was local. Area code 315, Pine Hollow. The same town from my childhood lake trips. The same place in those photos. I sat there, staring at the screen, my heart pounding. I didn't know what scared me more. The idea that my father had been having an affair, or the possibility that whoever this woman was, she still thought he was alive. That night, I drove home in silence. I didn't tell Mom what I'd found. Not yet. She'd already been through so much. And how do you even say that out loud? Hey, Mom, remember Dad? The man you loved for 40 years? He might have had another life. I couldn't. Not yet. But I couldn't let it go. Either. So I did what Dad always told me to do. I listened between the words. The next morning, I called the number. It rang twice before someone answered. A woman's voice, soft, calm, familiar somehow. Hello? I swallowed hard. Hi, I think you might have known my father. Tom Harlow? Silence. Then, I was wondering when you'd call. My stomach dropped. Who is this? She laughed softly. You sound just like him. Click. The line went dead. And that's when I realized, whoever she wasn't just a stranger. She was expecting me. I didn't move for a long time after the call ended. Just sat there at my kitchen table, staring at my phone, the hum of the refrigerator, the only sound in the house. She had said it so casually. You sound just like him. Like she'd been waiting years to say it. Like it was something she already knew. And then she'd hung up. I wanted to believe it was just a wrong number. That maybe she hadn't heard me clearly. But deep down, I knew that voice. Not from memory exactly, but from the way it made my stomach twist. The way it slid under my skin like a splinter I couldn't pull out. I'd heard it before, but from where, I couldn't place. That night, I dreamed of the lake, the one from those photos, the one my dad used to take me to when I was little. In the dream, I was sitting on the hood of the car, drinking a soda like always, except he wasn't beside me. It was a woman. Her hair was dark, her smile familiar in a way that made my heart ache. She turned to look at me and said, "He used to tell me about you all the time." Then the water behind her started to move. Slow ripples at first, then waves. Something big was stirring beneath the surface. I woke up gasping. The clock read 3:12 a.m. The house was silent. For the first time since he died, I was afraid to be alone. The next morning I went back to the office, not for work, not for closure, just because I couldn't stop thinking about that woman's voice. Whoever she was, she knew something. If she had really known my dad, if she had been close to him, then maybe she could tell me what he never did. Maybe she could make it make sense. The number she called from was local. I traced the area code back to Pine Hollow. Population 1,200. One grocery store, one gas station, and the same lake I hadn't seen in 20 years. I packed a bag. Mom thought I was going to a client meeting. I didn't correct her. It was a 4-hour drive from Albany to Pine Hollow. The farther I went, the more memories surfaced. Summer drives with the windows down, Dad humming off key to Fleetwood Mac, the smell of wet pine and gasoline. I passed the old diner where we used to stop for milkshakes. It was boarded up now. When I reached the lake, it looked exactly the same. Quiet, gray, framed by tall pines that bent slightly toward the water like they were listening. There was a single car, parked near the dock, a silver sedan. My heart started to race. Recognized that car, it was in one of the photos on Dad's secret phone. I parked a few yards away, watching. A woman sat on the dock, her legs dangling over the edge, hair pulled back in a loose braid. She looked mid-40s, maybe older, dressed in jeans and a dark sweater. When she heard my car door close, she turned slowly, and for a second, I forgot how to breathe because she looked just like my mother. Not exactly. The hair was darker, the face sharper, but the resemblance was uncanny. She stood up, wiped her hands on her jeans, and gave me a small, knowing smile. "You must be Lily." I froze, my name. She knew my name. How do you? She tilted her head, studying me. "He showed me pictures. Said you were the best thing he ever made." The words hit like a punch. "I'm sorry," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Who are you?" She hesitated. "My name's Julia." The name didn't ring any bells. "I knew your father a long time," she said softly. "You shouldn't be here." I took a step closer. "You called me." Her eyes flickered. "Did I?" "Yes. Yesterday you said, 'You sound just like him.'" I couldn't even bring myself to repeat it. She smiled faintly. Then maybe I just wanted to hear him one more time. We stood there in silence, the wind picking up across the lake, rippling the surface. Finally I said, "Were you In love with him? Her expression didn't change. Is that what you think this was? I don't know what to think. She looked past me toward the trees. He didn't tell you about me, did he? No! Of course he didn't. She walked toward her car, opened the trunk, and pulled out a small box wrapped in cloth. He wanted you to have this, she said, holding it out. I hesitated before taking it. It was heavier than it looked. What is it? Answers, she said simply. But I should warn you, once you open it, you won't be able to pretend anymore. Then she got into her car and drove away, tires crunching over the gravel until the sound faded completely. I stood there for a long time, staring at the box. It wasn't locked, but my hands shook too much to open it. Instead, I put it in the passenger seat and drove home. The whole way, I kept replaying that conversation, her tone, her phrasing. He wanted you to have this. How could he have wanted anything for me? He'd been dead for weeks, unless she'd seen him after the heart attack. Or unless, no, that was impossible. But as I drove, I couldn't shake the feeling that Julia knew more than she'd said. Back home, I finally untied the cloth. Inside the box were 3 things. A stack of old photographs, a small leather journal, USB flash drive taped to the lid. I started with the photos. Most were from the 1990s. Dad standing beside the lake, leaning against a red pickup truck, sometimes alone, sometimes with Julia. In some, they were holding hands. In others, she was visibly pregnant. My heart froze. The dates written. On the backs were all before I was born. Grabbed the journal next. The first page was filled with my father's handwriting. March 3rd, 1991. Julia's expecting. She says she wants to tell Margaret, but I can't let her. Not yet. Lily's too young. She wouldn't understand. I flipped through page after page, my breath coming faster. He wrote about money, about a house he was paying for, about visits to Pine Hollow when Mom thought he was working late. And then, in one entry near the end, dated just a year before he died, Julia's girl turned 30 today. I wish I could be there. She looks just like Lily. My vision blurred. Julia's girl. He had another daughter, my half-sister. The journal slipped from my hands. The USB drive glinted under the light. I plugged it into my laptop. There was only one video file. It was shaky. Handheld footage. Dad sitting in a car, the camera propped on the dashboard. He looked older, tired. He smiled faintly. If you're watching this, kiddo, it means I didn't get the chance to explain. I made mistakes, big ones, but none of it was meant to hurt you. I sat frozen, staring at his face. I tried to keep both parts of my life separate. I thought it would protect everyone. But secrets have a way of bleeding through. Julia and I, we go way back. Before your mother, before you. But after you were born, I couldn't let go. She had someone else, someone I couldn't tell you about. I thought I could fix it. I couldn't. He sighed, rubbed his eyes. If Julia gave you this, then you know by now that you have a sister. Her name's Emily. My heart stopped. Emily. She doesn't know about you. Not really. But I think she deserves to. You both do. The video cut off. I replayed it 3 times, hoping there'd be more. There wasn't. I stared at the screen, trying to breathe, trying to make sense of it. Dad had another family, another daughter, and for some reason, Julia thought now was the time for me to find out. But something about her words still didn't sit right. He wanted you to have this. If Dad really wanted me to have that box, why hadn't he left it in his will? Why leave it with her? Unless he hadn't trusted her either. I pulled up his old phone again, scrolled through the messages one more time. Right before the last, same place tonight, message, there was another number listed, one I hadn't noticed before. Different area code, different tone. Unknown too. Don't tell her anything until I say so. She's not ready. Dad. She deserves the truth. Unknown. To you, the truth will ruin everything. The contact name was hidden, no photo, but the message timestamp, 2 days before his death. Whoever that second person was, Dad had been planning to tell someone something important. And now I wasn't sure if Julia had given me the full story, or if she was just continuing whatever game he'd started. That night, I looked up Julia online. It didn't take long. There was a Julia Monroe listed in Pine Hollow Dart age, 47, married once, divorced in 1994. One daughter listed on an old high school alumni page, Emily Monroe, 31 years old, the same age. Dad wrote in his journal, and when I clicked on Emily's photo, my blood went cold, because she looked exactly like me. I must have stared at that photo for a full minute before I realized I wasn't breathing. The resemblance wasn't just uncanny, it was undeniable. Same hazel eyes, same curve of the jaw, even the same little freckle near the corner of the mouth. If someone had shown me that picture without context, I would have thought it was me. The profile was from a community art page, some small gallery exhibition in upstate New York. Emily Monroe, mixed media artist. There was a short bio, a headshot, and a link to an Instagram account. I clicked it before I could think twice. Her page was full of color and chaos. Paintings, sculptures, photos of her smiling with friends. There were no pictures of family, no captions about parents or siblings. Just her art, her dog, and a life that looked so normal it made my chest hurt. She had no idea I existed. I sat there for hours scrolling through her feed, studying every detail like it could tell me something about who she was and who he was when he was with her mother. And then I saw it. A photo posted just 3 months ago. Emily standing on a familiar dock. The lake shimmering behind her. Caption: "Some places stay the same no matter how much time passes. The same dock where my dad used to take me. The same lake from his photos with Julia. The same spot where he had another life." The next morning, I packed my bag again. I didn't tell Mom. I didn't tell anyone. If my father had lived 2 lives, then I needed to see both sides of it for myself. It was a 4-hour drive to the address listed under Emily's gallery. The entire way, my thoughts looped in circles. How long had he been doing this? Did Mom know? Did Julia know about me? And most importantly, did Emily know about him? By the time I pulled into the small art district in Ithaca, the afternoon sun was low and golden, washing the streets in light. The gallery was small, tucked between a coffee shop and a bookstore. The sign read, "Monroe Studio." Inside, it smelled like paint and sawdust, canvas-lined walls, bright colors, and there she was, standing by the window, talking to a customer. I froze in the doorway, because it really was like looking in a mirror from 10 years ago. She saw me almost immediately. Her smile faltered for just a second. Something flickered in her eyes. Confusion, maybe, or recognition she couldn't place. "Hi," she said, walking toward me. "Can I help you?" My throat went dry. "Are you Emily?" She nodded, friendly but cautious. "Yeah, have we met?" I hesitated. "Not exactly," she tilted her head. "You look so familiar." I forced a weak smile. "I get that a lot. Are you from around here?" "Not really. I grew up near Albany." Something shifted in her expression. "That's where my mom's from." I swallowed hard. "Julia?" She blinked. "Yeah, do you know her?" I met her once. That caught her attention. "When?" "A few weeks ago. At Pine Hollow." Emily's face changed instantly. "At the lake?" "Yeah." She stepped closer, searching my face like she was looking for something specific. Then she whispered almost to herself, "Oh my God." I said nothing. "Who are you?" she asked softly. There it was, the question I'd been dreading. I opened my mouth, but the words stuck. Finally, I said, "My name's Lily." She frowned. "Okay, and?" I took a deep breath. "My dad was Thomas Harlow." For a long time, she didn't say anything. Then she laughed. Short, nervous, disbelieving. "You're joking." I wish I was. Her smile faded. "That's not possible." "I think it is." She shook her head, stepping back. "No. My dad's name was Daniel Monroe." My stomach dropped. "Your mom told you that?" I asked quietly. She hesitated. "Yeah. Why?" "Because my father's middle name was Daniel." We sat in a small cafe across the street. She didn't say much at first, just stirred her coffee and studied me like I might disappear if she blinked. I told her about the phone, the messages, the lake, the box Julia gave me. I told her about the journal, about my dad's video. Her hands trembled as she listened. When I finished, she didn't look angry. She looked lost. "So you're saying we have the same father?" I nodded. "Yes." She stared out the window for a long time before saying quietly, "He came to see me once, when I was 12. That made me freeze. "He did?" She nodded. "I didn't know who he was then. My mom said he was an old friend. He brought me this necklace." She pulled it from under her shirt, a simple gold locket. "I've worn it ever since," she said softly. "When I was older, I asked her about him. She said he died years ago, that he wasn't worth remembering." She looked at me again. I guess she lied about that too. We left the cafe as the sun started setting. I didn't know what to say. How do you tell someone their whole life was built on a secret? We walked to the lake in silence. The same one from the photo. The same one from my childhood. When we reached the dock, she said, "He used to bring you here, didn't he?" I nodded. "Every summer." Her eyes glistened. "So that's why he always came back." I used to think he just loved the view. I almost told her I thought the same thing about him, that he just loved the quiet, the calm, the escape. But maybe it wasn't the lake he loved. Maybe it was us, both of us, in 2 different lives. She finally broke the silence. "I want to know what else he hid." I hesitated. "You sure?" She nodded. "Secrets don't die when people do. They just wait to be found." So we agreed to meet the next morning at the cabin. The same one Julia said was their place. If he'd hidden one truth there, maybe there was more. When I got back to my hotel, I checked my email. 1 new message. No sender, no subject. Just a single sentence. She doesn't know everything either. And attached, a video file. I hesitated before opening it. It was security footage, time-stamped 2 weeks before my father's death. He was at a gas station, filling his car. Then a second figure walked up beside him. A woman. Not Julia. Not my mother. It was Emily. I didn't sleep that night. Not even for a minute. I kept replaying that video over and over, frame by frame, like if I stared long enough, I'd find some proof that it wasn't real, that the woman in the footage wasn't my sister, that this wasn't just one more layer of secrets piled on top of everything else, but it was her. There was no doubt. Same hair, same jacket, same necklace, the gold locket she'd shown me at the cafe. The timestamp read, April 8th, 2022. My father died on April 10th. 2 days before his death, Emily met him, and she'd looked right at the security camera before walking away, almost like she knew someone would be watching one day. By sunrise, I was already driving back toward Pine Hollow. The fog rolled low through the trees, wrapping around the road like smoke. I didn't even stop for coffee. When I reached the cabin, Emily's car was already there. She was sitting on the porch steps, elbows on her knees, staring at the ground. She looked up when she heard my car. "You got it too, didn't you?" she said before I could even speak. My throat went dry. "You got the video?" She nodded. "It came to me last night. Same time, probably." "From who?" She shook her head. "No sender, just the file." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The air was damp and still, heavy with the smell of pine and old rain. Then Emily said, "He didn't die of a heart attack." I stared at her. "What?" She looked pale. "My mom, Julia, she told me the truth this morning. Said she never wanted me to know, but she didn't have a choice anymore." "Emily." She said your mom called her that night. The night before he died. Said she was coming over. They met here, argued. She left. And the next morning, he was gone. I felt my chest tighten. "That's not possible. My mom was in Arizona." "She wasn't," Emily cut in. "Julia said she showed up here in person. Drove 4 hours in the middle of the night. Julia said she saw her car parked outside the cabin." My heart started to race. Julia said she heard shouting, then silence. She didn't go inside. She just waited. The next morning, the car was gone. And so was he. I took a step back, shaking my head. "No, my mom loved him. She'd never—" Emily's voice was quiet but steady. "My mom said she found this inside the cabin the next day. She handed me a small flash drive. I haven't watched it yet," she said. "I wanted to wait for you." We went inside. The cabin was colder than before, the air thick with dust and memory. We plugged the flash drive into my laptop and waited. A single file appeared. 041002.move. The timestamp on the folder matched the night before he died. I clicked play. The video started in darkness, then static, and then the inside of this very cabin. My father sat at the desk, his face pale under the lamplight. He looked exhausted. He stared into the camera for a long moment before speaking. "Margaret came tonight," my mother's name. "She knows about Julia, about Emily, about everything. I don't know how. Maybe she found the letters. Maybe Julia told her. Doesn't matter. It's all coming apart." He rubbed his face with both hands, breathing hard. "She said she's going to tell Lily. Said she'll make sure she knows what kind of man I am. I tried to calm her down, but she wouldn't listen. She said—" He stopped, swallowing hard. "She said she wished she'd never had either of us." My heart dropped. "She left about an hour ago, but I don't think this is over. If anything happens to me, tell Lily I'm sorry. Tell her I didn't mean for any of this. I just wanted—" He trailed off. Then quietly, "I just wanted to keep my daughter safe." The video cut out there. Silence filled the room. Emily's voice broke it first. "Daughters," she whispered. I nodded numbly. "He was scared," she said. "He knew something was coming." I could barely hear her. My ears were ringing. My mind was trying to piece everything together, but it didn't fit. My mother, Julia, my father, and all of it leading here. Outside, thunder rolled. I closed the laptop and stood. "I need to talk to my mom." Emily frowned. "Now?" "Yes." Before anyone else tells me another lie. I stepped outside, my phone already in my hand. "No service." "Of course. I'll drive into town," I said. Emily grabbed my wrist. "Lily, wait. There's more." "What do you mean?" She hesitated, then pulled something from her pocket. A folded letter, worn at the edges. "She mailed this to me last week, before all of this." "Julia?" "No," Emily said softly. "Your mom." I froze. She handed it to me. The paper trembled in my hands as I unfolded it. The handwriting was unmistakable. "Emily, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. There are things you need to know. Your father wasn't the man you think he was. Neither was mine. He made choices that hurt all of us. And I made choices that hurt him. I kept you and Lily apart because I thought it would protect you both. I thought if you never met, you'd never find out the truth. But secrets rot when they stay buried too long. If you want answers, go to the lake. There's something buried beneath the dock. M. The room spun. I looked at Emily. Did you? She shook her head. Not yet. I was waiting for you. The rain started again as we ran down the hill toward the lake. The dock creaked under our weight. The water was black and restless. We searched the ground around the posts until Emily's hand hit something hard. Metal. We dug with our bare hands, the mud cold and thick under our fingers. Finally, she pulled up a small metal box, rusted and heavy. My pulse thundered in my ears as I pried it open. Inside was another flash drive and a stack of old photos wrapped in plastic. The photos showed my mother and my father, together, smiling. But behind them, barely visible in the background of one picture, was Julia. She was standing by the trees, watching them. The next photo was even worse. It was my father, lying on the sow, ground, unconscious or dead, his face turned toward the camera. And standing over him, her hand still clutching something metallic, was my mother, a tire iron. Emily stumbled back, hand over her mouth. I couldn't breathe. The final photo was dated April 10th, 2022, the day he died. Lightning flashed across the lake, white and violent. I stuffed the photos back into the box, my hands shaking uncontrollably. Emily whispered, "She killed him." I wanted to deny it, to scream that it wasn't true, but I couldn't, because my mother had written "Go to the lake," because she'd hidden this herself, because she wanted me to find it. I realized then that she hadn't written that letter to protect herself. She'd written it to confess. Back at the cabin, I opened the flash drive. Another video. My mother this time. She looked older, exhausted, her eyes red and wet. If you're watching this, Lily, then it's finally out. I wish I could explain everything, but I know you won't forgive me. And maybe you shouldn't. I didn't mean to kill him. I just wanted him to listen. He grabbed my arm, and She stopped, sobbing into her hands. I called Julia. I told her to say it was a heart attack. She agreed, said it was better for everyone. I thought I could live with it, but I can't. Not anymore. She looked straight into the camera. He loved you both, more than I ever could. The video ended. I sat there, numb, staring at the dark screen. Outside, the storm raged, wind screaming through the trees like a warning we hadn't heard in time. Emily whispered, "What do we do now?" I didn't know, because the truth wasn't something I could unsee, and it wasn't just my family anymore. It was hers. Too, we were both born out of lies, both raised on half-truths, both left to carry what our parents couldn't face. By morning, the storm had passed. The lake was still again. We buried the box beneath the dock, not to hide it, but to put it where it belonged, beneath the weight of water and silence. When we finished, Emily looked at me. "Do you hate her?" she asked. I thought for a long time. "I don't know," I said, "but I understand her." She nodded. We stood there, watching the sun rise over the water. Two sisters who'd never known each other. Two daughters bound by one man's lies and two women's grief. And for the first time, I realized something. Maybe family isn't about truth. Maybe it's about surviving it. For the first time in my life, I didn't know where I belonged. The lake was still, almost too still. And the silence that followed the storm felt unnatural, heavy, watchful. I kept waiting for the wind to rise again, to erase everything we'd unearthed. But it didn't. The world just kept existing. When I turned toward Emily, she was crouched beside the dock, running her fingers through the cold water like she was tracing something only she could see. She looked calm, but her eyes were red. I think that was when I realized she was stronger than me. "I don't think she meant to kill him," I said finally, the words breaking the quiet. Emily didn't look at me. Maybe not, but she did. I nodded, staring at the water. "Yeah." We stood there a while longer before I said, "We should probably go to the police." Emily's head snapped up. "And tell them what? That our dad died a year ago and our mom confessed on a flash drive? There's no evidence they'll accept. They'll just say we're making it up." She wasn't wrong, but the idea of walking away, of letting everything stay buried again, made me sick. I wanted justice, or closure, or whatever you call it when you're trying to make sense of a world built on lies. But Emily was right. There was nothing the police could do now. Mom was alive, but her health had been deteriorating for months. She wasn't dangerous anymore. She wasn't even herself most days, and Dad, he was long gone. The only thing left to do was decide whether to let it die with them. We drove back to my hotel in silence. I don't know what I expected. Comfort, maybe. Relief. But instead, it felt like everything I'd ever believed about family had dissolved into static. Dad's secret life. Mom's lie. Julia's silence. Each of them had made choices they told themselves were for love, and each had destroyed someone in the process. Love, I realized, was the most dangerous excuse of all. When we parked, Emily said, "I'll stay in town for a while." "I don't think I can go home yet," I nodded. "Me neither." We sat there, both pretending to look out the windshield, pretending not to see how broken the other looked. Then quietly she said, "You know what's funny?" "What?" "My mom used to tell me that I was lucky to have no family around. She said family just holds you back. But I spent my whole life wishing I had someone. And now that I do," she trailed off, eyes filling. "It's not what I thought it would feel like." I reached over, took her hand. It never is. That night, I called Mom. She answered on the second ring, her voice small, tired. "Lily?" "Yeah, Mom, it's me." There was a long pause. "Are you at home?" "No," I said. "I'm at the lake." Another silence. Then, "You found it, didn't you?" I closed my eyes. "Yeah, I found everything." She didn't cry. She didn't deny it. She just said, softly, "He made me into something I didn't recognize, Lily. Loving him was like drowning slow. I thought if I could stop him, I'd finally breathe again. But I never did." Her voice cracked on the last word. "You didn't have to lie," I whispered. "Yes, I did," she said. "You were just a kid. You needed a hero. I couldn't let you see who he really was." I wanted to tell her that she'd done more damage by hiding it, that she'd taken away my right to know the truth, to mourn him for who he was instead of who she pretended he'd been. But she sounded so fragile, so small that I couldn't say it. "Mom," I said instead. "He loved us both, you and me. And I think in his own way he loved her too. But none of it fixes what happened." There was a long pause. "I know," she said. "That's why I wanted you to find it. I didn't want it to die with me." I swallowed hard. "What about Julia? About Emily?" "They deserve to know too," she whispered. "It wasn't fair that only one of you got his truth." I nodded, though she couldn't see me. When the call ended, I sat in the dark for a long time, the sound of her voice echoing in my head. She hadn't asked for forgiveness, and I hadn't offered it. Maybe that was the closest we'd ever get to peace. 2 days later, Emily and I returned to the lake one last time. We brought 2 bouquets, white lilies for him, and purple asters for the version of him we never got to meet. The sun was rising through the trees, painting everything gold. I handed her the small locket she always wore. "You should keep it," I said. She smiled faintly. "You sure?" I nodded. "You had him first," she shook her head. "No, he had both of us the whole time. We just didn't know it." We laid the flowers by the dock and stood there in silence. After a long time, Emily said, "Do you think we can still be sisters?" I thought about it. "We already are." She smiled then, a real one this time. And for a moment, I saw Dad's smile reflected in hers. Not the man from the lies, but the man from my memories. The one who hummed in the car. The one who told me to listen between the words. Maybe both versions were true. Maybe both men had lived inside him, and maybe both daughters had inherited a little of each. Weeks passed. Life somehow continued. Emily went back to her studio. I went back to work. We talked often about art, about grief, about Mom's health. It wasn't perfect. We didn't always understand each other, but we tried, and that trying felt like something our parents had never managed to do. One night, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a small photo. Dad at the lake smiling. On the back, a single sentence written in his handwriting. "You both deserve the truth." I don't know who sent it. Julia, maybe, or Mom before she forgot everything. But it didn't matter. Because for the first time, I didn't need more answers. I finally understood what he meant all those years ago. People tell you who they are. You just have to listen between the words. And between all the lies, all the half-truths, all the love that twisted and broke us, I heard him clearly now. He wasn't asking to be forgiven. He was telling me it was okay to let go. When I left the lake that last time, the water was perfectly still, no ripples, no wind, just the reflection of 2 women standing side by side, sisters bound not by blood or pain anymore, but by choice. And that, I realized, was what made us family. Not the lies we inherited, but the truth we chose to live with. Months passed before I went back to the lake again. By then, the leaves had started to turn, red and gold, scattered across the water like broken glass catching the light. It was strange how peaceful it all looked now. The same place that had held so much pain, so much truth, so much of the weight I didn't even know I'd been carrying. And yet it felt still, gentle, forgiving. Even I parked my car by the old dock. Emily's car was already there. She stood at the edge, hands stuffed in her jacket pockets. Her hair whipped by the wind. When she turned, she smiled. That small, tired smile I'd grown to love. "You came," she said. "I told you I would." She nodded and gestured to the water. "Looks different, doesn't it?" It did. Or maybe we were the ones who had changed. We sat side by side on the dock, our legs dangling above the water. I handed her a thermos of coffee and took one for myself. For a while, neither of us said anything. Then she said, "Mom's gone." I turned. "Julia?" She nodded. "Heart failure. Peaceful, at least." "She didn't suffer." "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "She left something for you," Emily added, pulling a folded letter from her coat pocket. The paper was yellowed, worn, the ink slightly smudged at the corners. My name was written on the front in looping. Elegant handwriting. I hesitated before opening it. Lily, I don't expect forgiveness. I know you must hate me for what I kept from you, for what I helped bury. But I hope one day you'll understand that I was trying to protect what little good there was left in the man we both loved. He wasn't perfect. None of us were, but he loved you. More than I ever could admit. He used to tell me about the way you laughed, about how you'd sit by the lake and skip stones until your hand hurt. He said you had a gift for finding light in dark places. I used to envy that. You remind me of the best parts of him, and none of the worst. I'm sorry I couldn't be. Braver. Take care of Emily. She's more like you than she knows. Julia. My eyes burned by the time I reached the end. For the first time, I didn't feel anger reading her words, only sadness, and maybe, somewhere deep beneath that, forgiveness. I think she really did love him, Emily said after a while. In her own way. I think they all did, I said softly. Mom, Dad, Julia, they just didn't know how to love without breaking things. Emily smiled faintly. Guess we got lucky then. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was true. We'd both inherited their damage, their silence, their mistakes. But we'd also inherited something else, the chance to do better, and maybe that was enough. We spent the rest of the day clearing out the cabin one last time. Most of what was inside had rotted. Old furniture, moldy books, water-damaged boxes. But under one of the floorboards, we found something neither of us expected. A small wooden box. Inside it, a Polaroid photo of Dad, sitting on this same dock, smiling at the camera. On his lap, 2 toddlers, me and Emily. I didn't even remember it being taken. The edges were worn, but the joy in that image was unmistakable. Dad looked happy. Genuinely happy. He wasn't 2 men there, not the liar, not the cheater, not the coward, just a father, with his daughters. On the back of the photo, in his handwriting, were 3 words, my 2 worlds. That was all. No explanations. No excuses, just love. Messy, human, imperfect love. I handed the photo to Emily. She stared at it for a long time before tucking it gently into her jacket. Maybe this is how we let him rest, she said. Maybe, I whispered. We burned what was left of the cabin that evening, not out of hatred, but as a kind of burial. A funeral for the ghosts that had lived there too long. The flames caught quickly, the dry wood crackling, the smoke curling up into the night sky. We stood side by side, watching until there was nothing left but embers and ash. And for the first time, I felt lighter. In the months that followed, life slowly began to rebuild itself. Mom passed quietly in her sleep 2 weeks later. I didn't cry when I got the call, not because I didn't care, but because I think I'd been grieving her for years already. I went to her house to handle her things. In her bedside drawer, I found a small envelope addressed to me. Inside was a photo of me as a baby. On the back, in her handwriting, it said, I hope one day you'll understand that I loved you the best I knew how. I pressed the photo to my chest and cried for both of them, for the life I could have had, and the one I'd built instead, for all the broken people who had tried to love in the only ways they knew. A year later, Emily and I opened an art exhibit together. We called it 2 Worlds. Her paintings filled the room. Water, trees, light breaking through shadows, and in the corner, under a single spotlight, we placed the photo of Dad with both of us. No captions, no explanations, just the truth, hanging in silence, letting people see what we finally understood. That family isn't something you inherit. It's something you choose to keep. When the exhibit ended that night, we walked back to the lake one last time. The stars reflected on the surface, and for a moment, it looked endless. Emily leaned against me and said, You ever think he's watching us? I smiled. If he is, he's probably trying to fix the stars. She laughed, and the sound carried out over the water like something free. We stood there, 2 sisters bound by the wreckage of one man's secrets. And somehow, it didn't feel tragic anymore. It felt right, whole, ours. As we turned to leave, I glanced back one last time at the lake that had held all our beginnings and endings, and I whispered into the wind, not as a goodbye, but as an understanding. We figured it out. The water rippled gently, as if answering back. The end.